Now, speaking of other news in which the left is continuing to destroy things quite literally, not just metaphorically, but quite literally, you have Portland here. Oh, lovely Portland, folks. This one is just so mind-boggling that these Dems are willing to continually vote these idiots in office that are willing to let this type of destructive behavior take place within their areas. So violent crime in Portland, Oregon has drastically risen over the last 3 years, most previously in 2020 when the city saw nearly protests every night and riots over the death of George Floyd. I mean, there was cases where the Democrats and progressive left literally took over actual blocks of cities called Chap and Chaws, and it was ran by Antifa. You have a great book called Unmasked, written by Andy Ngo, that talks all about this and how he infiltrated their I don't even know what you call them, their clubs, their rallies, their protests, whatever it may be. While at the same time, you had Joy Behar, The View, say that they're just an ideology, that they don't actually exist. While they have pamphlets, they have actual recruitment. They've been freaking interviewed on TV, but they don't exist according to Joy Behar. She's just going to continue to spout her rants and idiotic agendas on live television. But back to this, there's a report that confirms that unfortunate reality of what we already knew. The gun violence is on the rise in Portland, and it's being driven by a very small percentage of our population. This comes from the Portland Mayor, Ted Wheeler. This guy is just terrible. Wait till you see a video clip here that I'm going to show you in a moment of what people have to say about this guy. So researchers for the California Partnership for Safe Communities compiled crime data from the city, specifically examining homicides and non-fatal shootings from 2019 to 2021. The data found that there was a 144% increase in homicides from January 2019 to June 2021, while non-fatal shootings increased 241%. Jeez, it sounds like we're talking about Chicago. I mean, you can only see this data in leftist ran areas, folks. It's so wild. The violent crime began ticking up in 2019 with 36 homicides that year compared to 26 in 2018. The city had held a 20-year average of 28 homicides per year, with 2004 as an outlier at 29. And they're just shooting these stats right through the roof, very similar to Lori Lightfoot over there in Chicago. Well, we have a clip here from Fox News talking about Portland and the lack of manpower versus homeless chop shops. When you see this footage, folks, it's so crazy. It is so crazy.
Springer, live in Seattle with more on this. This is absolutely unbelievable, Dan.
Yeah, it really is. Eric, vehicle thefts are up across the country the last couple of years, including here in Seattle. But we went to Portland and saw something new. Chop shops out in the open in and around homeless encampments. The city's homeless problem is on full display as you drive around, with 100 different encampments with people living in tents or broken down RVs. And mixed inside many of these camps are stolen cars that have been stripped, usually down to the metal shell. Gone are the tires, batteries, and catalytic converters. Oftentimes, they've been burned or littered with drug paraphernalia. We spoke with people who work next to some of these tent city chop shops.
Our city council and our mayor are idiots. Just straight up idiots. They don't seem to care.
It's rampant on the island and in North Portland. People are having their cars stolen right out of their driveway.
Last year, Portland had over 9,000 cars stolen. Police recovered 78% of them within 30 days, but they rarely, if ever, investigate, so the vast majority of these cases go unsolved and the thieves go unpunished. Witnesses tell us they've seen stolen cars brought into homeless encampments on tow trucks, and within 2 days they are completely stripped and torched with VIN numbers scratched off. Portland ditched its auto crime unit in 2006 and was gutted by defunding to appease rioters in 2020.
Our staffing issue is going to play a role in our ability to address this, and we know the problem is bigger than we can handle right now.
Carjackings were also big, way up in the country last year, a part of a larger spike in violent crime, but again, pretty different to go around and see a lot of these cars chopped up in homeless encampments. You don't see that in a lot of big cities, but you do in Portland. Eric?
Yeah, shocking. And that's what you get when you defund, apparently. Wow. All right, Dan, thanks so much.
Not only do you see it in Portland, but you're seeing it in California as well. We've talked about the homeless encampments here where you can't even walk on the curb anymore because their stuff is spilling out in the middle of the street. You have prostitution, you have rapes happening, you have murders and homicides. You have literally homeless people in Los Angeles going after U.S. Olympians. We talked about that the other day. I mean, I've always said we literally have an app here in Los Angeles that helps people and guide them around human feces and these homeless encampments. It is nuts. It's crazy what these Democrats and these leftists are willing to vote for. I mean, there's a new stat out that said that 92% of Democrats would still vote for Joe Biden amidst everything going on if he were to run against Trump. It's just so baffling that they're willing to literally shit and sleep in their own bed. The average that we saw before in terms of the numbers and the outliers was soon obliterated with the data showed 2020 notched at 58% increase in homicides compared to the prior year. At 57 deaths, and 2021 record a 54% increase at 88 homicides. So remember, like 29 was an outlier. Now they're at 88% homicides. Nuts. The number of homicides in 2021 was a 238% increase from the numbers recorded in 2018. Check this one out. Non-fatal shootings have, meanwhile, more than tripled from 2019 to 2021. It's just they're breaking records. I mean, the Democrat Party, if they're good at anything right now, the only thing they are good at is breaking records in a negative way in terms of homicides, in terms of assaults, in terms of robberies, in terms of freaking getting your car stolen. It's just like Joe Biden breaking records on immigration, breaking records on inflation. Haven't seen inflation numbers like this in 40 decades. I've never even witnessed it because I wasn't even alive back then. These numbers are so high. I mean, dude, this is the Democrat Party for you. 92% folks are still going to vote for Joe Biden. Freaking dude, that's not even all there. That gets lost, fumbles, fights with his teleprompter, fist bumps Saudi Arabia princess. I'm laughing because it's so freaking outrageous. It is so outrageous that they're willing to just live in this type of America. The study found that the majority of suspects in both non-fatal shootings and homicide cases had been previously arrested and were known to the criminal justice system. Homicide suspects have been arrested an average of 6 times. Yes, let me just... I have to repeat these things because it's so crazy that I don't want you guys to think like you misheard me. Homicide suspects have been arrested an average of 6 times. So some were more, some were less. 6 times prior to killing, while suspects in the shootings have been arrested on average of 8 times before. Portland saw near constant protests and riots in 2020 following the George Floyd in Minneapolis, while protests spilling over into 2021. I mean, why would you not go out and protest and steal a bunch of crap? You're not getting arrested for it, and if you are, you're just being let loose because your DA doesn't want to do anything. The city saw at least 100 consecutive nights of protests and riots beginning in the summer of 2020, and businesses burned and looted an autonomous zone established that resisted police interference. I mean, police couldn't even go into here. When somebody got injured in here because there were shootings and stabbings, again, all this stuff was taking place in this autonomous zone, that police couldn't get in, paramedics couldn't get in. There's literally a barricade, and like they had to drag people out. Like the actual Antifa people in there had to drag them out because they wouldn't allow these people in, these first responders. The crime in Portland follows a national trend that showed murders spiking by 30% in 2020 compared to 2019, marking the largest single-year increase in killings since the agency began tracking the crimes, according to FBI. I know I'm repeating myself, but this is literally the type of America that Democrats want. They want crime. They want theft. They want robberies. They want murders. They want homicides. They want all this stuff. They want high inflation. You know how I know they want high inflation? Because people vote for things like they happened in Seattle in terms of increasing the minimum wage to $15 an hour. And they can't fathom why when they go get a burrito or a taco at Taco Bell, it's like $20. I've always talked about there's a Panda Express near me that's paying like $20 an hour for somebody to scoop food onto a plate, not cook it, not do anything, but stand there, take a ladle, scoop it, and put it onto a styrofoam plate, $20 an hour. And they can't fathom why stuff is so expensive, why there's high inflation. But yet you have Kamala Harris coming out, you have Joe Biden, and the whole White House administration. Karine Jean-Pierre specifically said this the other day, that, we're kind of noting that we're getting higher wages for people and we're trying to decrease inflation. Let that one sink in. She's boasting about higher inflation and trying to lower it, but she's going to boast about the increase in wages. I don't know. All the while, you have Gavin Newsom of California wanting to give stimulus checks to curb inflation. Yeah. Higher wages is going to curb inflation. Giving out more stimulus checks, according to these Democrats, is going to curb inflation. These people are idiots, just like the lady said. They're all dumb. And that's every time you have a Democrat in office, you have to have Republicans come in and clean up the mess, folks. I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Bald Brad Show. If you did, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all our future content.